Hello snowboarders of the internet, I am your host TC and this is Top 5s, the only top 5 show in snowboarding that you come to when you're first starting out. On today's episode, we will be talking about the top 5 beginner snowboards for 24-25 season. Number 5, the Rossignol Sawblade. This board is great for beginners because it does have really good edge hold in between your feet, but as you work your way out to the nose and the tail, it does feel a little bit more loose, so it is nice and catch free, especially when you're learning, whether that being in the park or just trying to get down the mountain. It doesn't let you slip that much, but it doesn't feel super grabby or catchy where you can be a little loose on it and really not have the greatest form because you are a beginner after all. Number 4, the Nidecker Score. This is personally one of my favorite boards, but as you guys know, this is a collaborative effort for these top 5, so you know, it still made the list, but I just really like this board. It does have a good camber profile to it where it is that positive camber, so if you are learning, it might take a little bit more, make that learning curve a little bit longer, but it will in turn make you a better rider overall. You can use this board as you work your way to an intermediate or anything like that. It's just a good board where it has plenty of snap to it. You want to take it to the park, you can definitely do that, but the edge hold on this is really good, especially for that beginner board where you don't really have to push into the edge or anything like that. As long as you set the edge, you're going to be totally fine. It isn't going to be the stiffest thing out there either, so you can flex into it, you can lean each way and really just figure out how boards actually flex. Torsionally, you can really torsionally flex this thing with no problem, so it is going to be that softer board. It's not super aggressive, even though that camber profile is going to be on that more aggressive side. It's still tailored to that beginner rider, and it's just going to help in the long run moving up and opening up more boards for you. Number 3, the Jones Rally Cat. It is a new board in the Jones line, but it's still going to be a great board with not the most tech features, but it still has some good features to it, where it's going to have that centered base, so it's going to be nice and fast and durable as long as you keep that thing waxed. But really, it's got a great camber profile, so it is going to be that standard camber where you got from contact point to contact point, you're going to have that full camber there where it allows you for good edge hold, nice pop, that sort of thing, but it's not going to be too cumbersome and too burly, especially for a beginner, since there isn't any fancy woods in there or any fancy tech like carbon or basalt stringers, anything like that. It's just going to be that solid standard board that's going to get you from point A to point B, allow you to progress as well, and then once you start overflexing this thing, you start feeling like you're overpowering it, you can step up from there. But when you just get on a board, it's going to be all you need really. It's going to handle all those conditions for you, whether it be your first POW day, your first slush day, or just a nice groomer day. It's going to do it all for you, and you don't really need to expand that quiver until your abilities have. If you like what you see, why don't you click that bell, turn on those notifications, and remember to like, and that way you don't miss any of the content we have coming out. Number 2, the Ride Agenda. This board is awesome. It's actually Avran's favorite version of this board, where it's been in their line forever, as far as I can remember. I want to say about 10 plus years or so, but it's an awesome board without all those fancy bells and whistles, coming in at that lower price tag as well, where you're going to have camber in between your feet with a little bit of rocker on the tip and tail, which is really going to be nice for when you're learning and progressing into that intermediate rider. You can still ride it where it'll get on edge, it'll hold that edge, but it's not going to be super aggressive where you're stuck on it. It's really nice and easy to get from edge to edge, especially on those short, quick carves. When you're learning, you're a little uncertain, everything feels a little weird. This makes it a little bit easier to get over. You're also going to be able to ride this board as you progress into that intermediate. You're going to be able to take this thing to more like to the bigger mountain stuff, to pretty much those intermediate black runs. It's still going to handle it. You'll still be able to make it down the mountain without having to get a new board or anything like that just because you're overpowering it. Honorable mentions. Remember, these are all great options for a board, but they just weren't able to crack the top 5. Better luck next year. First honorable mention is going to be the Gnu GWO. This is going to be a full reverse camber board, so it's going to be super catch free, nice and easy to swivel on, especially when you are that super beginner, this is your first time ever riding. Just makes it nice and easy to turn, so you're not just straight lining it down the mountain. It's also going to be equipped with magnet traction, and what that's going to do is it's going to act like a serrated edge on the side of your board, so that's just going to cut into those icier conditions and just help you learn how to turn pretty much without digging in too much or just slowing you down. The second honorable mention is the K2 Gateway Pop. This board is gonna have a little bit more tech in it where you're gonna still have an extruded base, so you don't really have to take that good of care of it. But it is gonna have carbon running from the nose to the tail. So what that's gonna do is that's gonna give you all that pop, drive, and precision you're looking for, especially as you progress as a rider. It's also gonna keep this board a little bit more rigid. If you guys didn't know, boards do break down over time. This one's gonna keep that rigidity just a little bit longer, and you're gonna want that especially as you progress. And the final honorable mention is the Capita Pathfinder. Reverse or camber, it's dealer's choice. If you want the reverse option, just know it's gonna be a little bit more user-friendly, that anti-scorpion technology, as they kind of say, where it's gonna be really catch-free. If you go with that camber version, you're gonna have a little bit more precision there, where if you don't mind falling right away, you can do that, and it is going to progress you as a rider a little bit faster. Once you get the hang of a cambered board, it just helps so much more in the long run, gets you on just a plethora of boards out there and doesn't pigeonhole you to a reverse camber option. Remember, these are all great options, they just weren't able to crack our top 5 this year. If you're looking for a way to get further involved in the Angry Snowboarder community, head on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP. Sure, I could explain what it is here, but we have a great video over there getting into it really in depth. And the number one board for beginners of 24-25 season is the Nitro Prime. This board is awesome. It's the meat and potatoes board, especially for beginners. You can ride this board all the way up until you're advanced and have a great time on it, but it really excels for those beginners, where it's gonna be a directional twin board. So once you figure out your stance, it's gonna ride the opposite way as well, but you're just gonna have a little bit extra on that nose. That's gonna help out when you get your first ever POW day, help out with a little bit more float there. It's also gonna have rocker on the nose and the tail. What that's gonna do is that's gonna make your board a little bit more catch free. So when you're riding and you're just sitting, being that heel side hero, it's not gonna wanna dig in quite as much as if you just had that full cambered snowboard. Like if your friend's like, hey, I got one from the 1990s, you'll love it. It's not the same. This board is gonna be much better than that. Definitely gonna help you progress and just get out there and have a great time. And that's what snowboarding is all about. As always, guys, I've been your host, TC, and this has been our beginner board of 25 list. Do you agree with the list? Do you disagree with the list? Leave a comment down below. I want to know what you guys have to say. If you think you're a little bit more advanced than this list is, why don't you go check out one of our other top 5 lists? We have a plethora on our channel.